Karakoram Mountains of Pakistan, one of the most rugged, remote and inhospitable places in the world. Despite its savage nature, this is a photographer's paradise, and one man is determined to capture its austere grandeur.
There's a unique landscape here that continually inspires me. These mountains that rise up with the very fine fluted towers, with domes, with shapes that appear to rise from a Tolkien novel. Occasionally in Scotland you'll find yourself in the Coolin where you've got a bit of mist, running over a pinnacle. Here in Pakistan, almost every mountain has these spires and pinnacles with mist running in and out of them. And I feel there's great opportunity to create images that really stimulate the imagination.
There are more mountains over 8,000 metres in the Karakoram than anywhere else, and they've attracted the world's finest climbers for over a century. But there are very few photographers who have been prepared to endure the hardship and dangers that exist here.
It's awesome. Awesome. Thank you, my supper. There's not another place in the world like this. Just this obelisk of rock that rises so vertically. We've been rather fortuitous this afternoon because we were scheduled to go to Triangle Base Camp, but the glacier conditions are too dangerous, and we've come to a spot which is exactly where I wanted to be. We've got a bit of cloud coming through today, and it's made a huge difference because instead of the blue sky, which we've seen almost solely for the full trip so far, has changed, and I'm really delighted. We've got a bit of drama going on.
By any standard, Colin Prior is one of the world's great landscape photographers. For over 30 years, he's meticulously documented Scotland's mountains and wild places. Whether it's the wind-torn Atlantic beaches of Western Harris or the serrated skyline of Skye's Coolin Ridge, he's matched a photographer's eye with the instincts of a mountaineer.
Well, this image was photographed on the summer solstice, and it was a tremendously warm and bright day, and as evening approached, a front came in from the east, and I thought that would be over, but it passed very quickly, and you've got what looks almost like a smoke-filled waiting room in a station. The effect was stunning.
Colin Prior has an instantly recognisable style. Where other people saw mountains rising up vertically, paradoxically, he saw them in a different way, horizontally. Capturing vast, sweeping panoramas, his photographs were a complete revelation to most people. For mountain goers like me, this was a new and inspirational way of seeing our wild places.
I just felt that the Scottish landscape really lent itself to that wide format, particularly if you got high And that became my challenge. And the first big picture that I ever took that really awakened me to the potential of shooting at dusk and dawn from elevated positions was in Glen Etive on the 10th of November 1990. Despite all the times that I've been in the Scottish mountains, it remains probably the single most amazing moment that I've witnessed in mountains. Just the combination of the landscape and the light that took place there that night. I was on the summit of Ben Starav, looking down Glen Etive. The sun had been held back all day by cirrus cloud, very frustrating. And when we got to the summit, my father and I, we realised that there was a big clear band of sky between this cirrus cloud and the horizon through which the sun would need to drop. And eventually the sun did drop through that, and it was like a giant theatre lamp illuminating the landscape. It came alive. It just burst into colour with the sun hitting it. And that really became the catalyst for my quest to photograph the rest of the Scottish landscape in that fashion. What I'm trying to capture in my photographs is something that doesn't really exist. I go out to shoot something that's invisible, and I'm trying to fuse the landscape together with the most amazing light that turns a landscape from the ordinary into the extraordinary.
To non-photographers, taking landscape pictures might appear easy. In fact, the opposite is true. Long periods of time are spent waiting for that fleeting instant when the light is just right. Colin Prior spends countless days and nights out in the hills and has the patience and tenacity to wait for exactly that moment.
It's that hunger, essentially, that drives you. It's that rat in your stomach that chews away at it from the inside and pushes you up these mountains at the wee hours of the morning or camping there overnight. My whole philosophy about photography is getting it right in the camera. You've got to put the legwork in, you've got to go out there. And there's no substitute of photographing a mountain at dusk and dawn. With dusk photographs, it's sometimes a little easier because you can climb up onto a mountain, linger on the summit until the sun drops, and you've still roughly got about 40 minutes of ambient light to get off. With sunrise pictures, it's a little bit more complicated because you've got to go there and camp. You're carrying perhaps 25 kilos up a mountain, and each time I do that, I think I'm going to find a way to reduce the weight on my back. But I can't. I use everything in the rucksack, my tent, my cooking equipment. I eat all the food, and when I come back, there's nothing that I can actually take out that rucksack, much to my dismay. But if you're prepared to do that, there's the potential to shoot something that's absolutely magical.
Today, Colin spends much of his time passing on his knowledge to others. This group have been exploring Inverpolly and Ascent, and the final day starts with an early trek up Stack Polly, hopefully to catch a spectacular dawn.
Well done, everybody. Great effort. If you fancy going to the summit, do it. It's not the proper summit, but I find up there that you lose this perspective on the foreground because you're too elevated.
We've been in some fantastic places and beaches and rocks, and it was just great to see the countryside from a different perspective. I've walked most of these places that we've been, but to come and look at it with Colin made quite a difference.
See, there is a bit of clipping in the blue channel. You see that just, and that's coming from the sky. When I see a histogram like that, it's always worrying.
Right.
So you need to use less exposure. So what shutter speed and aperture are you working at?
I'm no expert, but just looking at his work, you can see the meticulous attention to detail. I mean, this guy recce's places, he plans, he looks at what the weather's going to do, he looks at what the tide's going to do. He does his homework. He's got a wonderful eye. He sees things in the landscape that, yes, if it's pointed out to you afterwards, you might see as well. You can look at his photos for hours and you see more and more. And he probably saw that before he pressed the shutter. Very impressive.
They're not the sort of shots that I could get by wandering off for a weekend or something. Clearly he's invested a lot of time and a lot of knowledge in terms of the location, the timing and all the rest of it to get the shots that he gets. And I think, well, it seems a bit daft to say it, but exceptional.
What we as photographers are attempting to do is to take the three-dimensional world in which we live and transform that into the two-dimensional world of photography. And we know that it's very, very different. And the key to becoming an authoritative photographer is understanding the differences between these two states.
Coming on a course like this, you learn so much, and it's as much for me about the locations that Colin's bringing us to and his knowledge about the places that's been amazing, really, because anyone can go to a beach or a street market and take photos, but you can't come here unless you're with somebody that really knows what they're talking about and what they're doing.
Although Colin Prior has established himself as a mountain photographer, his first pictures were taken not in the hills, but in the depths of the ocean.
I won Best Newcomer to underwater photography, and that really gave me the confidence to go out and become a photographer.
But that early success wasn't something you might have predicted.
At school, I was very much an average performer, and in some subjects, a below average performer. I was never very good at anything. And when I discovered photography, I realised that I had something special, that I had something unique. And I decided that I would try to be the very best photographer in my own field.
Anybody can pick up a camera, point it and shoot, and if you shoot often enough you'll get some good pictures. But some of the stuff that he does, and then he can explain to you what he was doing, why he was doing it, and it just turns out it's absolutely fabulous. I could never ever hope to reproduce anything like that myself, even if he was standing over my shoulder telling me what to do.
Pakistan, June 2013, and the start of the biggest challenge of Colin's career. He's planning to spend the next 5 years or so meticulously documenting the mountains and valleys that form the spectacular Karakoram. From the capital, Islamabad, it's a 2-day journey north up the notoriously dangerous Karakoram Highway. It's a distance of over 450 miles to where the final road ends in the frontier village of Ascoli. The Karakoram is not a place you visit by accident. Simply getting here is an adventure in itself, and that's part of the attraction.
The landscape was quite breathtaking. Villages, which are essentially oases that sit on this high altitude desert, because
That's often what people don't understand about this region. It's a desert with these amazing mountains that grow out the stones on the Baltoro, but there's very, very little rainfall here. We went through some very arid country, and these villages use irrigation very effectively, and they're just these green oases of civilization within an otherwise barren landscape. If you want to photograph the mountains, you've just got to make the journey, you've got to travel the distance. You've got to put up with living on the trail for 40 days in order to get access to these mountains. It does take a little bit longer than a run up to Knoydart.
In Scotland, Colin works by himself, but to photograph in the Karakoram, he needs a lot of support. There are porters, kitchen staff, and a specialist crew for Colin and the film team. Over 50 people in total, under the leadership of 2 Karakoram veterans, Cook and Deputy Sirdar Ali and Chief Sirdar Karim. Without their help, this journey wouldn't be possible. In essence, this is a full-scale mountaineering expedition. Already they're at 3,000 metres, where the effects of altitude are clearly felt. Ahead lies a 6-week journey that will take them to nearly 5,000 metres, into the very heart of the Karakoram.
I can't quite work the same way as I've done in Scotland, where I recce mountain ranges or specific mountains and then work out the best time of the year to photograph them. With this trip, I need to be a little bit more responsive and take what's given to me, essentially.
From Ascoli, Colin will travel up the Baltoro Glacier, staying in a series of camps along the way. As he treks east, he wants to produce a definitive photographic record of these great mountains. The plan is to reach Concordia and Chogaliza in the upper Baltoro. It's a risky enterprise. Pakistan has the reputation of being one of the world's least stable countries. The expedition has needed special permission to travel throughout this region. The first film crew allowed into this highly sensitive area for years.
Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for the latest updates.